Today on the news and why it matters, the Overstock CEO has dropped a bombshell claim. Is it proof of the deep state? We'll get into that and much more to come. Also, CNN. CNN has hired a really interesting contributor who doesn't have any history of lying under oath or anything of that nature. Much more to come, and it starts right now. Welcome to the news and why it matters. I am Sarah Gonzalez, today joined by Mr. Pat Gray of Pat Gray Unleashed.
Hello.
Thank you for being here. Chief researcher for the Glenn Beck program, Jason Buttrell.
Howdy.
Hello. Howdy. Howdy, y'all. Well, howdy there, Eric
What's
July.
going on? What's going
YouTube
on?
host Eric July. Thank you for being here. All right, so Jason, you are the chief researcher. So in a minute, I want you to just kind of lay out this this deep state exposed claims. But first, we want to thank our sponsor, American Financing. So if you are you're in the middle of maybe a refinance or, you're buying a house, whatever the case may be, whatever you need some sort of financing organization for, American Financing is your go-to. What I love the most about them is that they are salary-based professionals helping you. They're not commission-based. They're not looking for which deal is going to give them the biggest kickback. They don't have that incentive. Their incentive, they're just there to help you. They're just there to help you find something that's going to be the right fit for you and for your family. I like to personally say, since Stu's here, I will make jokes at his expense. Stu went to them and wanted to do this crazy mortgage, and the kind you get in like a back alley when, the mafia lends you money and then you get broken legs later when you don't pay. And, he found an organization that would do it. And American Financing still said, you know what? Go with that organization if that's what you want to do, but we think that that's too crazy and we're going to just pass on your business. So they're smart enough to not to do business with Stu. That's what I like the most about them. If you are looking to refinance, you can go to americanfinancing.net or you can call 800-906-2440. So Jason, if you would lay out kind of in chronological order the events that have taken place with Patrick Byrne, the Overstock CEO, who has just recently resigned over all of this scandal.
I think we were probably the first ones to really talk about this, in depth, really. But it all stemmed from an interview he gave with Sarah Carter, where he dropped some pretty big bombs on what was going on with the beginning of the Russia investigation, what was going on, weirdly enough, with the Clinton investigation back in the day, I assume having to do with the uranium one. That's just an assumption because he didn't really go into that. But then he dropped this on I think it was a Fox Business News. He was surprised with that. And it really looked like he did not want to talk about it. He went to it a little bit, but kind of got off of the subject. So we looked into it a little bit more in depth. And this is what he's alleging. And I'll tell you first what he's alleging and what this might mean actually going forward. But what he's saying is, and this is all verified. And again, I want to say that Patrick Byrne is, Glenn knows him. I think he's a friend of the network. He has no dog in this fight whatsoever, I don't think. He's a straight libertarian.
Yeah. We've covered him over being libertarian a lot, so yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he's not a Republican. He's not a Democrat.
It certainly wouldn't give him any, it wouldn't do him any favors to come out and say the things that he's alleging.
Has no reason. But so he was, I think it was a conference, Freedom Fest. It's a libertarian. He was at Freedom Fest. I think back in 2015, and he met the crazy Bond girl spy, Maria Butina, which is just hilarious how people were trying to paint her as a Russian spy. Absolutely a spy. Absolutely ridiculous. She was taking selfies in front of, at Trump's inauguration and posting it all over the internet. Now, unless tradecraft has changed drastically
just be a really
since
bad
I was
spy,
back in the intelligence community, yeah, I mean, maybe they don't make them like they used to. But he met her, and she is basically, she represents, and who knew this even existed, but Russian libertarians over in Russia. And is that a thing, Eric?
Yeah, no, it's a thing. No, it's a thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you come across a lot of those, certainly in my circle. I mean, Brazilian libertarians, Russian libertarians, absolutely.
So she's with this group, and she's trying to get in with everybody she can think of that might have the president's ear or an incoming president's ear. So she's making contacts with everyone. She links up with Byrne, And she's like, hey, check this out. This is what I'm doing. Come over to Russia. I'll put you in touch with all these people in Russia that are influential. Some people have ties to the government, yada, yada, yada. Well, Byrne got freaked out on this because he has a security clearance. And it says in your security clearance, if you're ever contacted by a foreign national with promises like this, to report it. So he did. The FBI said, we're not interested. We know who this chick is.
Yeah. She's fine.
She's fine. We looked into her. She's good. Not only that, but they approved her to get a student visa to hang out here. Well, the relationship gets a little intimate, and it gets a little bit, she raises the stakes on that a little bit. He goes along with it. And then he starts getting uncomfortable because he's like, well, hey, she's telling me that they're having meetings with Hillary Clinton or with Marco Rubio.
Yeah.
This is where the meeting's going to happen. This is where they're going to be. You might want to go take a look at that. This is him talking to the FBI. The FBI's like, no, we're not interested. We told you it's all fine. You'll keep your clearance, whatever. So this relationship dies off eventually, but he keeps, as a good citizen, reporting this to the FBI because he thinks something shady's going on. Well, after this, they separate.
Which, hold on, let's give him credit for, because the FBI's told me several times, like, no, dummy, she's fine, all right? We've already told you. I'm like, okay, fine, I'm not helping you guys out anymore.
Right.
But I think during the course of the relationship, he'd been convinced, hadn't he, that she wasn't a spy?
Yes.
Now, this is later. Now, this is after.
Okay.
He breaks it off, but the FBI all of a sudden calls him up and is like, hey, Patrick, why don't we want you to rekindle this romance? Yeah. And he agrees to. But while he's rekindling this romance, that's when he comes to the realization that, look, this is just a Russian libertarian. Again,
I've known her. I've been close to her.
Right. And she's legitimately after gun rights in Russia and a few other things. But then the FBI suddenly says, okay, but now we care. And they wanted him to continue this. Well, it comes out later that he's like, okay, I think that this was all a part of a blackmail operation. And it's political espionage, basically, to use against the Trump campaign for something. Now, this is coinciding right when the Russia investigation is beginning. What he's alluding to, this is what this means to me, I think, and my feelings are kind of evolving on this, is that, have you guys ever seen The Good Shepherd, that movie, Matt Damon? It's one of my favorites, but it's loose.
Try to avoid Matt Damon movies.
Right.
General rule.
It's loosely based on the most successful counterintelligence agent the CIA's ever had. He was the chief of counterintelligence for the CIA back in the 50s, 60s. His name's James Angleton. And everyone in Washington, D.C., all over the country was scared to death of this man because they thought that he had a little safe with compromising information, regardless of who was in power, that he could pull out and use if he wanted to get something done. This is kind of what Byrne is describing here, because he says that Hillary Clinton they were involved with getting something on Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump, Marco Rubio. It's on both political sides. But what he's saying is that Peter Strzok and he's also James Comey were involved in doing this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we have actually, I believe we have him speaking to Chris Cuomo, unfortunately for him, speaking to Chris Cuomo about this. Let's listen to what he had to say.
They came back to me and said, boy, what a mistake we made. Russia, you're right. There's this Russia, this gal Maria, oh my gosh, highest national priority. And they said, and the very honorable men and women, the men in black, they said, we want to be clear. This never happens in the United States. We are the good guys. We don't work like the bad guys, but we need to ask you to rekindle a romantic relationship with Maria Butina. And
members of the FBI that you're sure were members of the FBI asked you to do this, and you know their names.
And I know their names, and they said these orders are coming from this is being personally supervised by Y, and it's being and at the request of X, and then 2 months later they said Mr. Z has added his name to these.
All right, now you're giving them anonymity now, but I heard you say on Fox, if you go put a camera in Jim Comey's face and say the name Patrick Byrne, you're not going to like the reaction it gets.
That's the Z.
Pretty clear, but he seemed very uncomfortable.
Fredo doesn't seem to believe what he's saying.
You're going to have to censor that word. You're going to have to censor that. Pat, what's your take?
I believe Patrick Byrne. He's a good guy. He's an honorable guy. I think he's being truthful there. I think most of his story has been verified and backed up. Yeah. And to me, to go to another fabulous and award-winning Matt Damon movie, it kind of reminds me of the Jason Bourne thing with, within the CIA, there's this also secretive organization of powerful people who are kind of working outside the official lines of the FBI, of the CIA, and it's called Operation Treadwell. To me, that's what this kind of sounds like, with James Comey and Peter Strzok going off and doing their own little thing outside of what the FBI is supposed to be doing, and setting up this clandestine operation to hurt Trump, maybe Hillary too. I mean, I don't know what their deal was, but maybe just to cause chaos.
I think they were just getting information on everybody that they could.
Yeah.
And when you have a government with a bureaucracy as bloated as ours is, this is the type of crap that you're going to get. You're going to get these unelected officials that are there sometimes for life, for years and years and years. And a lot of times they are bipartisan. Some of the times they're partisan, but a lot of times they are bipartisan. They just want to get information on everybody.
Yeah.
And they'll use it for however that may benefit them. But this seems like it's an interesting story because it's a glimpse into how this actually works. I absolutely believe this.
I think that's the most important thing to take from it. And aside from just the story itself, it's like we, certainly libertarians, I mean, some of what they call us conspiracy theorists and all kinds of craziness. When we say that there's, whether it be the CIA, whether it be the FBI, there's a lot of crookedness that takes place. A lot of people get set up, a lot of weird stuff. It's not just conspiracy. And we're hearing these stories seemingly now, I don't know if it's because of the Trump thing, come out where there is a lot more, shadiness, if you will, people sort of operating out of bounds, right? And I think, I would hope at least people of America are looking at this and actually paying attention at this. We do have this bloated government, and unfortunately, when it is that big, you're going to have people that are acting, like I say, out of bounds and doing a lot of crooked stuff. I think people need to actually start paying attention to that. I mean, we can say what we want about the Alex Jones of the world, but it's not just what he may go off the deep end on a lot of different things, but this stuff is real. This stuff really happens, and it absolutely happens to powerful people. What I always wonder if he can maybe somewhat combat it, considering that he's a very successful businessman. But I would imagine there's other situations where people are being asked to do a lot of weird things that aren't necessarily as powerful, and they feel like they have to kind of walk the line. We were talking about the mafia thing earlier. That may be some sort of things that are going on. But every time I get to hearing these stories, I'm sure more news will come out. Do we believe it? Do we not believe it? It's going to be left up for interpretation. But at the very least, I just hope people are seeing these stories unfold and at least start to question the government and a lot of these unelected officials who, like you said, are there for very, very long periods of time, and they're doing whatever the hell they want.
Well, and you say really, really quickly, Jason, you say that he is a successful businessman, which is not untrue. But he just had to resign from the company over all of this.
That's true. So he's not, invulnerable by any means. I mean, anybody can get it in that regards. But I'm saying, I guess if there were individuals that are lower than him in terms of economic class, they wouldn't be able to ride off in the sunset, if you will. I guess that's the least of it that can happen. But I do think that there's a lot of sort of weird, crooked stuff going on, and it's hard to combat.
There is something to look for if you want a little bit more hopefully concrete stuff on this. The Inspector General's report on the was it the FISA? Is that what's going on? The FISA abuses. Yeah. That's going to include a lot of stuff, and that's rumored to come out in a week or 2 weeks after Labor Day. So it could be sooner than that, but that's kind of the time frame to look at this, and I think we might get some information on this then.
Pat, really quickly before we go, James Comey, 2015, 2016, did you have a different opinion of him than you do now?
I think so, yeah.
I felt like he was a very impartial person. There was a point in time where I felt like he was a very impartial person just trying to do the right thing.
Right, until after he was fired.
Right.
And then he was bitter, obviously. Right. And he definitely was out to get Trump after that point.
Yeah, but the more that comes out about this guy, I'm like, wow, he was a snake.
Not a good guy.
He was a snake.
Yeah.
All right, back in a minute. I mean, he had me fooled.
Yeah.
I really did think
he
was handling, an investigation. Before we get back into the conversation, I want to thank our sponsor, Home Title Lock. So, when we think of securing our homes, we usually think of you have an alarm system. We're locking the doors, we're setting the alarm, and we can definitely protect our home from intruders. However, that's not the case because it's 2019 and you have seedy people who can go online. Jason's seen people, they sell home titles now. They go and what can't even think of the word, when they forge your signature on your home's title.
Or this. That works
You know,
too.
the thing. But it's Friday, you guys. And they forge your signature, and then they have control of your equity.
I know where the site is. I know where the actual site is. You can go to these sites. You see the home titles there, along with driver's licenses and
they're selling them for what, like $40, right?
Yeah, a little bit of crypto, but a tiny little fraction of crypto. But yeah, it's nothing.
It's crazy. It's crazy. So no identity theft program, no insurance program, no bank program. None of these things protect you from this particular thing, but Home Title Lock does. For pennies a day, they will put a virtual barrier around your home's title and mortgage and make sure that if thieves try to tamper with it, they're on it. They shut it down. Pat, I know you guys had like former FBI come in and show you how easy it was
unbelievable
to hack in and just steal it.
Within about 15 minutes, they had my mortgage. I gave them.
Oh my gosh.
I gave them almost no information, and within 15 minutes, they had it, and they'd forged my signature. And I'm looking at it, and I'm thinking, what do you mean you forged my signature? This must be the original document. Nope, that's the one we. So they just traced over my signature is all they did.
Wow.
And
Oh my gosh.
so it's really easy for them. And as soon as I found out how easy it is to steal your home,
Yeah.
I knew I had to have Home Title Lock.
Yeah. Right now, you can get 60 risk-free days of protection at HomeTitleLock.com. You got to go there, HomeTitleLock.com. So a lawmaker, Representative Tom Malinowski of New Jersey, I'm going to play what he had to say about illegal immigrants first, and then we're going to play a game, and I'm going to let you guys guess which political party he belongs to. Let's listen.
And then we have to think about the jobs, right? Because the reason this happens is there are a lot of jobs in our community that, like it or not, for better or worse, Americans are not willing to take. I mean, who do you think is taking care of our seniors? 50% of the elder care workers in the state of New Jersey are immigrants, most of them legal, most of them documented, but certainly some who are not. Who do you think is mowing our beautiful lawns in Somerset? We don't usually ask. But a lot of those workers are undocumented. They're just not a lot of, kids, from Montgomery High who are going to be doing that full time. You guys are going into robotics, for goodness sake.
Oh, wow.
What's that?
That actually is worse than everything.
We're talking about.
So all the white people are going into robotics.
Holy cow.
You got those illegals, though, that'll do your lawn.
That's the worst
I mean,
part
they're
of it.
great if you have roof problems. It's all fine.
That's really bad.
Yeah, so obviously a
Clearly
Republican.
a Republican, obviously.
Or a Proud Boy convention. Something
Right?
like that, maybe. That's what
Right?
I'm thinking.
Guys, Democrat Tom Malinowski, of course, talking about, we of course need the illegal immigrants to come mow your lawns. You guys are busy with much smarter
Robotics.
things like robotics.
You guys are doing rocket science and building, towers to the sky. Somebody's got to do your lawn. You don't have time. You don't have time for that.
That is so
That's
insulting.
amazing.
What's insane
I
is
love
that
that.
how they've actually how Democrat or the left has flipped everything.
Yeah.
So they want to say stuff like that. It's so obviously that it's virtue signaling bullcrap.
Could
It's
you-
so obvious. He's saying, look, there's some white jobs out there, and then there's the other jobs for the others out
Well,
there.
the white jobs, those are too good for the illegals.
Yeah. No, that's the most insulting part of it. And I think the left has they have a track record of doing this. But they get allowed to get away with it because they do signal to minority groups, if you will, and they act like they have that sort of political monopoly, and we're the good guys, we're the ones that want to help you out, and then they say uber insulting things like that. They do this all the sorts of time, and unfortunately, you can imagine, like if I say, it doesn't even have to be Trump, it could just be any old Joe Blow conservative. They'll be outside his house,
Pitchforks.
if he actually said something like that. But it is insulting. I think it does show how they actually view some of immigrants. It's like, hey, you're not actually that good. You just really get the hand-me-down. It's not even a hand-me-down. We don't want to do the jobs.
Yeah.
We're too busy.
good.
We're good. We're in robotics. We want our air conditioning, and we want all of that good stuff. You could be out there in the hot sun in Texas mowing the grass. And if you want weren't here, we wouldn't be able to do it.
And
like
by the way, we'll pay you way less.
Yeah.
We'll pay you pennies to go
No,
and do
that's
that.
insulting. That to me, and I think we need to start highlighting this because they get away with this, and then they get to go around and call the other side racist and stuff of that nature, which I don't understand that at all. When somebody can criticize maybe an immigration policy, whether you disagree or agree with it is totally irrelevant. But if you're on the opposite side of it, you get folks that say, oh, well, they want a Muslim ban, or they want they don't like Mexicans, they don't like Hispanics or something like that. And then somebody can say something clearly insulting what they're saying. You don't lack the mental capacity to be in robotics as an immigrant. You only can mow the grass.
Yeah.
That's insulting. They should be called out on that.
That is racism done right. That's not the kind you have to figure out or interpret.
Yeah, it's blatant.
That's just
blatant.
They're always accusing Trump or the right of dog whistle racism. What's the significance of that? You can't really hear it. You have to interpret it. That's bullhorn racism right there. That is clear-cut racist rhetoric. That's great.
Talking about the flip, how they've changed perception. Like they literally are making it. So they're saying, no, we have to separate people and give them certain things based off of what race they are. Now we're saying that no, race means nothing.
You want everyone to just
You're
be
racist
viewed.
for saying
But I'm the racist for saying that.
Yes.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, it is incredible. I also love how he said, we have, immigrants who are working in taking care of our elderly community. Well, I mean, most of them are legal and documented, but there are some of them who are not. And it's like they're trying to lump this issue into an issue of immigration itself and whether or not Republicans like immigrants. And it's like that's not what our argument is. That's not what the conversation is. The conversation is illegal immigration. Like, we like immigrants who are taking care of the elderly. That's fine. But I feel like, I wonder if the left even cares about the difference between legal and illegal immigrants. They're still just going to view you as lower than them because you're an immigrant.
Yeah, I think it's a political thing from the get-go. It's not. I don't even think it's less about legal or illegal. I think they're more so tying race to it, if anything. And it's in their effort to signal, they know that they sort of gain that support. And again, we're in this funky position where even I myself, I'm all about merit. I really don't care about your race. I don't even really care about your, immigration status in that case. It's like, you have the ability to do something. You don't have the ability. I feel like anybody can get out there and be great. But there I have that sort of position where I don't care if you're white, Hispanic or doesn't matter, Asian, doesn't really matter to me. There I have that position. It's folks that take the position that I have that are deemed as these racist folks, which people can get away on the left saying things like that all the time. That's like it's part of their platform. All you got to do is watch the Democratic debates, and it's just a bunch of signaling and them basically insinuating that people that aren't white are lower than everybody. You know what I mean? This is essentially what they do, and they're allowed to get away with it because again they act like they have this political and social monopoly over people that aren't white. And so they can say all the messed up, jacked up things about non-white people. But there, you don't even have to say anything offensive to Hispanics. Just take a neutral position. Like, I don't care what race you are. I'm all about merit. Doesn't matter, white, black, doesn't matter to me. Oh, you're racist. You're dog whistling to the racists or something like that.
Backwards world we live in. Back in a minute. Do you find that, gentlemen, before we go into overtime, I have to inform you, CNN has just announced a new contributor. It is former disgraced FBI Deputy Director Andy McCabe, who, as we know, got fired for lying under oath and also leaking information to the media, probably CNN. So it's good to know that CNN is continuing the record of having reputable people on their shows to give us factual information.
And yet everybody's yelling and screaming about how terrible it was of Fox to hire Sarah.
I was just about to mention that. Beto O'Rourke said that it was state TV. And I'm like, what is this?
Are you kidding me?
Let's see, I'll be monitoring his Twitter to see if he says anything about
Brian
it.
Stelter called out ABC for having
Sean Spicer on Dancing with the Stars.
Just yesterday he said that.
I know.
Today they hired this guy. Like, what?
It's insane. the two people who still watch CNN are going to be really, really
Those
excited
two,
to see
yeah.
Andy McCabe. Let me tell you.